I recently saw The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is a prequel to the Hunger Games series. It didn't quite have the emotional resonance, stakes, or shock value of the original movies, but I still thought it was a good movie that showed us the origin of Coriolanus Snow, the future president of Panem, and the one who ultimately made the Hunger Games the most popular annual television event in the capital. I'm going to be talking about heavy spoilers for The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so if you haven't seen it yet, this is your warning. What struck me about this movie is the number of similarities that young Snow has with Anakin Skywalker. In their respective franchises, President Snow and Darth Vader are ruthless men that rule with fear. They're master tacticians who manipulate, torture, and kill to maintain dominance over the rebels. We also know that neither villain is above killing children, or younglings depending on which movie you're watching. Snow and Anakin also have dark and complicated pasts, where they start off as well-meaning young men who were corrupted by a fear of loss and by a sadistic mentor. They had strong romances that ended up falling apart, and they even have the same haircut. In this video, I want to compare and contrast different elements of these two characters. At the end, I'll reveal which villain I believe had a more effective descent into darkness. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who did it better, the Star Wars prequels or the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? The first point I'm going to make is concerning their upbringing and their personality. Both of these characters went through hardship as children, but knew at a young age that they were destined for more. Anakin grew up as a slave on Tatooine, but was found to be a powerful Force user and said to be the chosen one that would bring balance to the Force. Snow grew up in a war-torn capital, where he had to fight for scraps of food as a young child. His father was a war hero who died in battle, leaving him with the pressure of being part of a legacy and the one who would try to maintain peace and stability in the capital, or at least his version of peace and stability. Despite their many similarities, Snow and Anakin had notable differences in personality during their younger years. One was defined mainly by emotion and passion, and the other by stoic calculation. In episodes 2 and 3, Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker was impulsive and emotional, two traits that made him a formidable fighter and a loving husband, but also led him on the path to the dark side. Jedi are supposed to keep their emotions in check and forego any passions that could cause them to stray. This is what made Anakin clash with the Jedi Council, as his brash personality is a direct contrast to the Jedi way. Anakin's personality from the prequels is noticeably different from Darth Vader's in the original trilogy. Vader is calm and emotionless throughout the three movies, at least until the end of Return of the Jedi. Luke plays to Vader's emotions by begging for help when the Emperor is about to kill him. Love may have been what drove Anakin to the dark side in the first place, but in this moment, it's also what brings him back to the light. As for Snow, he's someone whose personality remained relatively consistent from the prequel into the Hunger Games. In the Hunger Games trilogy, it was his cunning nature that made him a threat. The world was his chessboard. In the prequel, Snow was also clever and calculating, which he saw as a requirement for survival. He grew up in a war zone and lived through poverty, but being a mentor in the 10th Hunger Games was his chance to finally achieve wealth and status for himself and for his family. There were people like Sejanus that he called friends, but they were ultimately pawns to help him achieve his goals. He did everything in his power to help Lucy Gray win, including cheating, but in those moments, it's ambiguous if he's doing it because he loves her or if he's doing it just to earn the scholarship money. Snow breaks many rules in the 10th Hunger Games because he saw it as the only logical way to achieve his goals. This contrasts Anakin, who was a rule breaker because of his passion and impulsiveness. The second point I'm going to talk about is their motives. An important element of any good character is understanding their motives. What do they want, and what are they willing to do to get it? Both of these characters want order in worlds that are being torn apart by war. They believe that dictatorship is the most effective way to maintain peace and order, and that anyone who tries to rebel is simply an enemy of peace. They're also characters who desire honor and respect. Snow wants to live up to the legacy left by his father, and Anakin wants to be recognized as a Jedi Master. Yet both characters are being held back because of their superiors, Snow by Dean Highbottom and Anakin by the Jedi Council. A demand for respect and a belief in subjugation is a lethal combination that inevitably led to these characters becoming the evil rulers that we see in Star Wars and the Hunger Games. Of course, I also have to mention how their motives are directly affected by love, which brings me to my next point: forbidden romance. It's hard to look at characters like Darth Vader and President Snow and think of them as romantics, but their love interests played a major role in their respective downfalls during their younger years. Anakin met Padme at a young age and was infatuated with her ever since. Their romance is a major plotline in the prequel trilogy, and their deep love for each other is very clear, even if their dialogue is, to put it nicely, stilted.
You're so beautiful.
It's only because I'm so in love.
No. No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
The problem is that Jedi aren't supposed to be in love, and they certainly aren't supposed to marry. Anakin and Padme's secret romance added a spicy element to his already rebellious behavior, and it gave him a lot to lose. After losing his mother, Anakin became obsessed with protecting Padme and preventing anything bad from happening to her. Resisting his love for her likely would have prevented him from becoming Darth Vader, but it was his obsession with control and protecting his loved ones that made him desperate enough to join the dark side. This came with the tragic side effect of his rage and lust for power overtaking his love for Padme, causing him to harm her. It's said that she died of a broken heart, but him force choking her may have had something to do with it. Just a theory. As for Snow, he also began to engage in a forbidden love. But while Anakin dove headfirst into his romance, Snow was much more hesitant and careful. He was a Capitol mentor for District 12 tribute Lucy Gray. A romance between a Capitol citizen and someone from the districts was an absurd concept in Panem, but the two of them clicked from the start. Snow had a vested interest in Lucy Gray winning the games because it would help him get the scholarship money he needed. But his desperation to help her win also seemed to come from a place of love. The movie does a good job at keeping it ambiguous if he's helping her out of love or out of financial necessity, at least in Act 2. It then becomes clear in Act 3 that he does want to be with her, but his top priority is still returning to the Capitol someday. For obvious reasons, Lucy Gray wants nothing to do with the Capitol, but she does want to run away with Snow. Snow's comfortable life in the Capitol outweighs his interest in Lucy Gray, and their trust in each other quickly wanes, causing him to go mad. While Anakin's desire for Padme caused him to turn on the Jedi, it was Snow's desire for the Capitol that caused him to turn on Lucy Gray. And the last point I'm going to make are their respective falls from grace. The most important elements of these movies are the turning points that change these men for the worse. And this is where I think the Star Wars prequels did a better job. They had the advantage of developing Anakin over 3 movies instead of just 1, and it shows. They sprinkle in hints of Anakin's darkness here and there, but a major turning point for him was the killing of his mother. He finds her dead in a Tusken Raider village, and he responds by slaughtering everyone in sight.
And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
This was the moment where he not only justified killing, but became obsessed over keeping Padme alive. This was the vulnerability that allowed Palpatine to tempt him toward the dark side with the lie that he would be able to save her from death. Revenge of the Sith does a great job at showing us Anakin's inner conflict. He really wants to do the right thing by the Jedi and honor his mentor Obi-Wan, but his fear and desperation about Padme's impending death causes him to lose sight of what's right. And, to be fair, the Jedi Council didn't exactly help matters by the way they treated him. You can see how conflicted Anakin is when Mace Windu is about to kill Palpatine, but the moment he attacks Mace Windu was his point of no return. Snow's turn to evil was a little more abrupt. He had good intentions throughout most of the movie, trying to keep Lucy Gray alive, trying to provide for his cousin and his grandmother, and just trying to make an honest living. The bad things that he does are mostly the result of survival instinct rather than vengeance or a lust for power. He has to cheat in order to keep Lucy Gray alive. He has to kill one of the tributes in order to defend himself and Sejanus. He kills the mayor's daughter in District 12 so that she won't turn everyone in and have them all hanged. But Snow's point of no return was his betrayal of his friend Sejanus. Sejanus wants to help people in District 12 escape up north, and Snow is afraid that his association with Sejanus would get him in trouble, so he uses a Jabberjay to record their conversation and get his friend hanged. But even then, he suffers over this decision, and it brings him to tears. He intends to run away with Lucy Gray, but when she implies that she may turn him in for his crimes, he instantly turns on her, going full psycho mode and trying to shoot her. This was a whiplash-inducing fall, and one that I think should have been built up to more gradually. We know that Snow becomes a murderous dictator, but in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, he goes from conflicted and well-meaning to a violent killer way too quickly. The Hunger Games movies and books suggested that Snow gained power by making powerful connections and working his way to the top by quietly and gradually killing his political opponents with poison. The gun-toting maniac that we see trying to shoot Lucy Gray is a major contrast to this. I actually would have been more interested in seeing Snow's political rise to president, but Songbirds and Snakes doesn't really give us any of that. While we get to see the moment that he's entered into the academy, we don't get to see his actual rise to power. I really enjoyed Songbirds and Snakes, and I do acknowledge that the Star Wars prequels are far from perfect, but I think that the Star Wars prequels did a more thorough job of telling the villain's origin story. So those are my thoughts and opinions. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I hope y'all have a good one.